The accusation didn't happen in private. It happened in my aunt's living room, under bright ceiling lights, with plates still on the table. My cousin stood there shaking, tears running down her face. "I can't stay quiet anymore," she said. The room went still. Forks paused mid-air. Someone turned the TV off. Then she said my name. Not softly. Not uncertainly. With finality. My mother looked at me as if I had already confessed. My uncle stepped between us without asking a single question. No one asked for my side. No one said, "Wait. Have you ever watched your life collapse in real time while everyone else decides who you are?" I stood there, hands at my sides, as my reputation dissolved before dessert was even cleared. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Not messages asking what happened. Messages telling me what I had done. "You need to take responsibility. Admit it and maybe we can fix this. Don't make this worse." I sat at the edge of my bed, sunlight coming through the blinds in narrow stripes. The house felt smaller than it had the night before. My mom knocked once and entered without waiting. "They're very upset," she said quietly. "They?" I asked. "The family. Not you're upset. Not what happened. Just the family." I tried to explain. Calmly. Slowly. I told her there was no truth in what my cousin had said. That something had been misunderstood. That I had witnesses. That I could prove where I was. She nodded, but her eyes kept drifting toward the hallway. "Right now, it's about keeping the peace," she said. Keeping the peace. As if truth was optional. By noon, my uncle called. "You need to stay away for a while," he said. "Let things cool down." Cool down. Like I was a spark. By evening, my father sat across from me at the kitchen table. "You know how emotional she is," he said, referring to my cousin. "If you push back too hard, it will divide everyone." Divide everyone. So instead, they chose convenience. It was easier to distance one person than question the loudest voice in the room. Have you ever realized that silence isn't neutrality, it's a decision? Within days, invitations stopped coming. Family group chats went quiet. Photos were posted without me in them. I went to work, pretending nothing had shifted, but even there, whispers started. Someone had told someone. My name traveled faster than I could. At night, I replayed the moment over and over. The way she avoided eye contact before speaking. The way her mother squeezed her hand like they had practiced something. But I said nothing publicly. I kept waiting for someone to call and ask, what really happened? That call never came. Instead, my mother sent a short message 1 week later. "Maybe it's better if you find your own place for now." For now. That's how exile begins. Not with shouting. With quiet rearrangements. I packed a suitcase and left the house I had grown up in, telling myself it was temporary. 12 years later, I would understand that it was not. The first year away was the hardest because I still believed it would reverse itself. I kept expecting a message that said, "We made a mistake." Instead, I got silence. I moved into a small studio with a window that faced a brick wall. The radiator clicked at night. The hallway smelled like fried food and old carpet. I bought a second-hand table from a thrift store and ate dinner alone, listening to my upstairs neighbor's footsteps like they were part of my life now. Every so often, I checked my phone and felt that old reflex. Maybe today. But today never came. My cousin, Mara, posted online like nothing happened. Smiling photos. Family dinners. Holiday captions about truth and healing. People liked and commented. People I knew. I didn't comment back. I didn't defend myself publicly. Because I learned quickly that denial looks like guilt to people who already chose a side. Have you ever noticed how fast a rumor becomes a fact when it's convenient? The early warning signs were there from the start, if I'm honest. Mara had always been the center. The one who cried and got comforted. The one who could say something sharp, then soften it with a shaky voice. When we were teenagers, she once accused me of stealing her bracelet. Everyone searched my room. They found it in her own drawer 2 days later. No one apologized. My aunt laughed it off and said, "She's emotional." Emotional. That word covered everything like a blanket. In the months after the accusation, I tried to rebuild life in small pieces. New job. New routine. New friends who didn't know my last name. But even strangers could feel the weight I carried. I flinched when people asked about family. I avoided photos. I kept my social media empty, like the less visible I was, the safer. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang with an unknown number. It was my grandmother. Her voice was older, thinner. "I miss you," she said quietly. I sat down on the floor beside my couch, gripping the phone so tightly my fingers hurt. "I miss you too," I whispered. She didn't mention Mara. She didn't mention the accusation. But before she hung up, she said something that stayed in my chest for years. "Not everyone believed it," she murmured. "Some of us were just afraid." Afraid. That was the first crack in the story I'd been forced to live inside. After that call, I started noticing little things I had ignored before. A cousin who would message me late at night, "I hope you're okay," then disappear again. An old friend from the neighborhood who admitted, "They told us not to ask you anything." And then, the most unsettling part. Mara never contacted me directly. Not once. No demand for accountability. No request for closure. No conversation. Just a story she told the world, while I lived in the silence it created. Why would someone who was truly harmed never need answers? Why would she avoid me completely? I didn't have proof yet. But I had a feeling. And 12 years later, when my family suddenly started calling me again, I understood why they were reaching out now. The first call came from my uncle. 12 years of nothing. Then suddenly, "We need to talk." I almost didn't answer. His voice sounded older. Less certain. "How have you been?" he asked, like we were picking up from last Sunday. "I've been fine," I said. There was a pause. Then he cleared his throat. "There's been some confusion." Confusion. That word sat heavy between us. "What kind of confusion?" I asked. He hesitated longer this time. "Mara mentioned something recently. About misremembering parts of that night." Misremembering. I closed my eyes slowly. For 12 years, my name had been attached to something permanent. Something that cost me family dinners, holidays, trust, belonging. And now it was being described as confusion. Have you ever noticed how the truth becomes softer when it's inconvenient? "I see," I said calmly. "She was under a lot of stress back then," he added quickly. "You know how she is." I did. Emotional. Fragile. Protected. The pattern wasn't new. What was new was the shift. 2 days later, my mother called. Her voice trembled slightly. "We need you to come home. We need to clear this up." Clear this up. As if it were a spilled drink. "Why now?" I asked. There was a long silence on the other end. "Things are coming out," she said carefully. "About that night." Coming out from where? Had someone finally asked a question? Had someone compared timelines? Or had Mara simply slipped? That evening, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years sent me a message. "I found old messages," she wrote. "From that night. They don't match what Mara said." My heartbeat slowed instead of speeding up. Because I had always known something didn't add up. But I never had access to proof. Now they were calling. Not to check on me. Not to apologize. To manage damage. The realization didn't make me angry. It made me steady. For 12 years, I had rebuilt quietly. New job. New circle. A name that wasn't attached to whispers. They thought they were calling someone broken. They had no idea who I had become. I didn't rush home. I let their calls stack up for a few days. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. 12 years had passed. 12 birthdays. 12 holidays spent elsewhere. 12 years of rebuilding my name without their help. Now they wanted urgency. Have you ever noticed how quickly people demand resolution when the truth starts pointing at them? I went to work like usual. I answered emails. I made dinner. I watered the plant near my window that had survived longer than most of my old relationships. Routine had saved me. Routine had rebuilt me. That night, my mother left a voicemail. We didn't know everything, she said softly. We should have asked more questions. Should have. The phrase landed gently, but it carried weight. When they believed Mara, they hadn't needed questions. Now they needed answers. My cousin Lila called next. Mara admitted she exaggerated, she said bluntly. She says she felt pressured that night. That people expected something dramatic. Exaggerated. That word felt almost absurd. My life had unraveled over something exaggerated. She says she never meant for it to go that far, Lila added. But it had. It had gone exactly as far as it was allowed to go. I thought back to that living room. The ceiling lights. The way my uncle stepped between us without hearing me. No one had needed proof. They needed someone to blame. And I had been convenient. Have you ever realized you were chosen not because you were guilty, but because you were quiet? The next morning, I finally called my mother back. Her voice broke the moment she heard mine. We're so sorry, she said. The apology came fast. Overlapping words. Regret layered with fear. Why didn't you fight harder? I asked calmly. The question surprised her. You didn't give me space to, she whispered. That wasn't entirely true. I had tried to speak that night. I had tried to explain. But they had already decided. Silence isn't the absence of defense. It's what happens when no one listens. We want you to come home, she said. So we can fix this. Fix. I stared at the blank wall across from me. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was a memory of belonging. I'll think about it, I replied. Because this time, the decision wasn't theirs to rush. I agreed to meet them the following weekend. Neutral ground. A small cafe halfway between my apartment and my childhood neighborhood. Bright windows. Wooden tables. The smell of fresh bread and coffee strong enough to anchor anyone drifting into memory. They arrived early. All three of them. My mother. My father. And Mara. Seeing her in person after 12 years felt strange. She looked older, of course. Softer around the eyes. But her posture was the same. Shoulders slightly hunched, as if bracing for sympathy. We sat down. No one ordered anything. I'll say it, Mara began. Her voice was quieter than I remembered. I wasn't honest that night. The words didn't echo dramatically. They didn't shake the room. They just sat there. I felt cornered, she continued. I had been arguing with my mom. People were watching. I said something impulsive and it spiraled. Impulsive. Spiraled. I studied her face carefully. No tears. No performance. Just discomfort. You destroyed my life, I said evenly. My mother flinched. Mara swallowed. I know, she replied. That was new. No minimizing. No redirecting. But I didn't expect everyone to react like that, she added. There it was. Expectation. You didn't expect them to believe you so easily. Have you ever realized the real damage isn't the lie, it's the speed at which people accept it? My father leaned forward. We should have asked questions, he said. Yes, I replied. You should have. The cafe noise filled the silence between us. Cups clinking. A barista calling out orders. Normal life continuing. I was young, Mara said softly. So was I answered. She looked down. I've told everyone the truth now, she said. Family. Extended relatives. I've corrected it. Corrected. As if reputation works like a typo. Does it change the last 12 years? I asked. No one answered. Because it couldn't. Then my mother reached across the table. We want you back, she said. Back. As if I had wandered off. Not been pushed out. Have you ever noticed how people want reconciliation to erase accountability? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I built a life without you, I said calmly. You don't get to step back in like nothing happened. Mara's eyes filled slightly. I'll do whatever it takes, she whispered. For a moment, I believed she meant it. But belief isn't the same as trust. And trust isn't rebuilt in a single conversation. I didn't walk out of the cafe. That surprised them. Instead, I sat there and let the silence stretch. For 12 years, I had been the one left out of conversations. The one discussed, labeled, decided for. Now they were waiting on me. It felt unfamiliar. I'm not coming back to the family the way it was, I said slowly. My father nodded immediately. My mother looked down at her hands. Mara didn't speak. I don't want apologies repeated every holiday, I continued. I don't want whispered guilt at the table. I don't want to be the fragile subject everyone tiptoes around. Then what do you want? My mother asked. The question was honest. Not defensive. I thought about it carefully. I want distance, I said. And consistency. They exchanged looks. You can call, I added. You can visit. But I'm not rebuilding this overnight. Because rebuilding isn't dramatic. It's measured. Have you ever noticed how peace feels different from victory? There was no satisfaction in watching them regret it. No thrill in seeing Mara's discomfort. Just steadiness. For 12 years, I had learned how to live without their approval. How to make decisions without checking the temperature of a room. How to trust my own memory when others rewrote it. That was something they couldn't undo. As we stood to leave, Mara stopped me near the door. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Not because I was caught. Because I was wrong. I studied her face one last time. Maybe she had grown. Maybe losing control of the story forced her to confront it. Or maybe she simply ran out of places to hide. Either way, I didn't need to decide that today. I accept that you said it, I replied. Not forgiveness. Not absolution. Just acknowledgement. And when I stepped outside into the afternoon light, I felt lighter than I had in years. Not because they finally admitted the truth. But because I no longer needed them to. They didn't drive to my apartment that night. They didn't flood my phone with emotional messages. For the first time, they gave me space. And that mattered more than the apology. A week later, my uncle called again. I was wrong, he said plainly. I chose the loudest voice instead of the right one. No excuses. No references to stress or confusion. Just accountability. Over the next few months, small things shifted. Family group messages included me again. Invitations arrived without hesitation. When someone brought up the past, Mara corrected it herself. Not dramatically. Just clearly. I lied, she would say. It wasn't true. Hearing that in her voice, in front of others, felt different than any private apology. Because this time, the truth wasn't whispered. It was public. Have you ever realized that dignity isn't restored by revenge, but by visibility? I didn't attend every gathering. I didn't rush to prove I was healed. I moved slowly. Carefully. The way someone walks after standing up from a long fall. One evening, my grandmother held my hand at dinner. I knew, she said softly. I just didn't know how to fight it. I squeezed her fingers gently. I'm okay, I told her. And I meant it. Not because they finally believed me, but because I had learned to believe myself. 12 years ago, one lie reshaped my life. It pushed me out of a house. It forced me to rebuild without safety nets. It taught me that silence from others does not equal guilt. And now, when they called me back, they thought they were restoring something fragile. They didn't realize they were meeting someone stronger. If this story resonates with you, share your experience below. Like this video if you've ever had to rebuild your name from scratch. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation.